Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. We are celebrating International Women's Month with a very special program. My name's Lisa Levinson. I'm the campaigns director for In Defense of Animals, and I'm here with a couple of my colleagues. We've got Mary Easonsey, who's here. Hi, Mary.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming.
She's with our development team. She'll be chatting with you today. And we also have Lia Wilbourn, who is our Farm to Animals campaign specialist. Hi, Lia.
Hello, everyone.
And Lia is actually going to be presenting this program for you today. So thank you, Lia.
Of course, absolutely. My pleasure. Okay, hello. This is really exciting. I'm truly honored to have these two powerful, visionary women leaders who are vegan, who work in animal advocacy, and are making huge impacts in the world. So, first of all, I just want to introduce and say hello to Yvette Baker. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Hi. And Ashley Caps, welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much for having us, Leah, and for
Very-
thinking of me.
Of course. Okay. So, well, first of all, when this was brought up to me that we were, hey, let's do something for International Women's Month. This is actually our first initiative for this year, 2026. And these two women were the first that came to mind, and they happen to be available and they happen to say yes. So I'm just so excited to have them here. So we're going to start with Ashley and then Yvette after that. And first, I'm just going to say a few things about what's going on with IDA right now. So we do have this International Women's Month initiative. It's really for me, as the farmed animals campaigner, to amplify the plight of female animals around the world in all industries that exploit them. But primarily, I'm focusing on educating the public about what really goes on in animal farming and the sexual violation of female animals, the desecration of motherhood and the female reproductive system. But then we're also, of course, amplifying the voices of incredible women activists for animals. So, Mary, if you could put in the chat the link to that page where you all could get the resources and features that we're focusing on this month, that'd be great. Thank you very much, and everyone, please check that out. The shorthand to that is idausa.org/women's month. And then I'm just really, this has really been, we've been doing this more and more now, is bringing in other activists with really fresh, bold perspectives. And this is kind of an extension of last month too, which was Animal Activist Appreciation Month. So we're just going to keep going with this and bringing in these fantastic voices in solidarity with all of us. So yeah, let's also, if you would, and if you're so inclined, please check out our latest alert, which is for farmed animals, especially, which is targeting the humane certifiers. Really important to start exposing them. I mean, just continue to expose them. We all know them when you go into grocery stores. They're everywhere. And really, it's making the public feel better about continuing to buy animal products, and just giving the industry a better reputation, making them look like they're really helping when sadly they're not. So, and then lastly, a last reminder is that we have our vegan mentor support group every month on the second Monday of every month. At 4 p.m. Pacific time, and that is open to anyone, men and women, new vegans, long-term vegans. Yeah, so, and it's anonymous. If you, it's all, nothing leaves that room. You can be on video or not, but yeah, open to everyone. So please, we'd love to have you. Okay, so I'm just going to get right to it because I want to give these women as much time as possible. So, first off, we have Ashley Caps. She received a master's in fine arts in creative writing from the University of Iowa Writers Workshop and has published a book of poems, Mistaking the Sea for Green Fields. By day, she works as a director of research and communications for the food and climate justice nonprofit A Well-Fed World, and as a freelance writer on issues related to animal rights. She also founded and directs the campaign Mothers Against Dairy. For more than a decade, Ashley has been co-editing the new Sentience, an animal poetry anthology forthcoming from Trinity University Press in April next month. She lives in Asheville, North Carolina, where she is often looking for rocks and sometimes working on a second collection of poems. Her author website is ashley-caps.com. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you so much for having me and for thinking of me for this event today. And I know that you especially wanted me to talk about Mothers Against Dairy. I just want to say it's really an honor to be here, and it is especially an honor for me to share space with Yvette. Also makes me a bit intimidated. I have to say, just fangirl for a second. I think Apex Advocacy is probably doing the most important, most powerful, most beautiful, most thoughtful, smartest work of any organization I can think of in the vegan and animal rights movement. I think it's so important. You all are like, I even just looking at a social media post, like, first of all, it's so beautiful. Like, how you even managed to get all your branding so beautiful and consistent, but like, even just a social media post, I sit there and think, how much time did they put into just the text for like it is so thoughtful, it is so smart. You are constantly in your whether it's in your webinars, your blog posts, or again just an Instagram post, like synthesizing so many frameworks, so much scholarship, making it accessible to everyone so that they understand why vegans especially need to be coming from a collective liberation framework that is not just about the animals, because we are all in it together. It's all inextricably entangled. And the way that you do that, it just blows me away. It's awe-inspiring. So, I'm honored, but I'm also intimidated. I'm a big nerd. Nerds are my favorite people, but I watch y'all's webinars like religiously, and every time I think, y'all are some nerds. Like, y'all are like, and that is the highest praise I can give anybody, but y'all are like nerd 2.0. Like, I sit there and think, dang, they have really actually read all the books. Like, I got a lot of the books. Some of them are on my list, some of them are on my shelves. I've only read some of them. Like, y'all have read all the books and then some. So it's sometimes I feel embarrassed for myself, but it's inspirational and aspirational, and so I'm really honored to be here, and I will endeavor to keep up. Um, so, okay, you wanted me to talk about Mothers Against Dairy. I am, boy, today has been a learning curve. I finally made myself learn how to screen share. I get really overwhelmed by technology. So I am gonna try to share some slides with you all. Just let me know if I do something wrong, and go from there. And I'm watching my time too. Okay, so here we go, and share. And can you see that? Okay, great.
Yes,
Um,
we can.
Perfect. So, when people learn that I am the founder of Mothers Against Dairy, they are often surprised to learn that I am not myself a mother. And I was planning to share the sort of story of how I got into this work at all. It's kind of a funny circuitous path, but when I timed myself today, after I finally figured out how to upload these slides to Zoom, I realized I needed to kind of just jump right in. So I can talk if we get to it in the questions. If someone is curious later, I can share how I got into this work. But I'm really happy to be doing it. I work as the director of research and communications for the vegan nonprofit A Well-Fed World, which, let's see if I can jump to my slide about them, is a no, it's not gonna let me. Bear with me. Is a uh, okay. I'll show you my slide for Welfare World later. Welfare World is a plant-based hunger relief and climate advocacy food justice organization. We sponsor plant-based feeding and farming projects in communities around the world that are experiencing poverty, food apartheid, food insecurity. And so I am their director of research and communications. And then for many years, and it's been on pause for just a few years because I got really burned out dealing with so much animal suffering. But I was also a regular freelance writer for the Farmed Animal Advocacy and Animal Rights nonprofit Free from Harm, and love them. And so in 2016, sorry about that, while I was working for them, their director kind of let me write about anything that I wanted to related to animal rights. And I found that kind of disproportionately, I focused a lot on dairy farming. And I think that is because my experience of becoming a vegetarian at 12 was just, my first year in junior high. Someone handed me a flyer on eating meat, and it was full of horrible photos from inside a slaughterhouse. And, I was always a big animal lover as a kid, came from a family of animal lovers who, of course, also all ate animals. And I was horrified. I think if the flyer had also had stuff about dairy and eggs, I would have gone vegan right then. But it didn't. So I was a vegetarian, and I was a really smart kid. It took me, even so, until I was 25 years old, was the first time it occurred to me to think, huh, but cows wouldn't just make milk from eating grass, right? Like 25 years old, that was the first time. As like a super smart kid, I had that thought. And so I went to the internet and like Googled, how does dairy farming work and what happens to the animals? And I was horrified. That led me to Google what happens to chickens used for eggs. Horrified. Uh, and went vegan at 25. Um, but there was something extra galling to me about dairy. I think, as a vegan and an animal lover, I am horrified by and object to what happens to all of the animals, and not just in food industry, in all of the various animal use and abuse industries that our society is built on, from vivisection to fiber and fur and uh, all the different things that we do to animals. But uh, something with dairy, especially, I found so incredibly heartbreaking and offensive as a woman. Uh, it's not enough that we kill them, and of course, those animals, eggs, dairy, they all end up in the slaughterhouse too. It's not enough that we take these animals' lives, but that we are actually breeding animals into existence in order to force them to become mothers, in order to steal their babies and parasitize their mothering relationship, and steal their maternal lactations that we have no need for ourselves. As someone who, you know, like was a smart kid, I was so pissed that like I had been so thoroughly duped and brainwashed into not even questioning what this beverage was that I was drinking until I was 25 years old. I just had always accepted, your parents tell you you need to drink it, your doctors tell you you need to drink it. It's a health food, right? And I had just accepted that at face value. And so when I made the connection and learned the truth, I was pissed, and I was just extra offended. There was something extra sinister and predatory and really offensive to me about the dairy industry. And so in my writing, I found myself just especially passionate about pushing back against some of these myths and disinformation that had kept me in the dark for so long, and going along with supporting this. Like uh, just the idea that we are taught that we are supposed to be consuming any milk past the stage of infancy. In all species, milk is very specifically biologically baby food. That's just what it is. And that's why in all species of mammals, infants are weaned from the stuff. So started really focusing on pushing back against some of the disinformation. Even just the phrase lactose intolerance that we encounter. Lactose intolerance is framed as like an aberration, and even a pathology. It's like a condition some people have, right? No, actually, it's what's normal and natural. Lactase persistence. Most adults stop making the enzyme that breaks down lactose and makes it digestible during or shortly after infancy, like their bodies are supposed to do. And yet we have all of this disinformation telling us that to not be able to consume milk without having a reaction is like some kind of illness. Um, so, uh, and there's a map showing actually how few people actually can properly digest it. Um, okay, so I'll get to this slide in a second. So in my writing, I found myself especially wanting to push back against dairy. And I was always studying their tactics, how they were positioning it, how they were marketing it. And something I began to notice around 2016 or 2017 was that suddenly I was seeing all of these female faces. Kind of serving as the mouthpiece for dairy, and especially serving to push back against so-called vegan propaganda. All of the stuff that consumers were increasingly becoming aware of, all of these cruel dairy industry practices. Suddenly, I was seeing all of these female dairy farmers getting these platforms and finding ways to try and make people still feel okay about consuming dairy, even with what they were learning. And so I started digging a little bit deeper and like, why was this happening? And I discovered that the dairy industry and even the government, to some extent, the USDA, had started pouring literally tens of millions of dollars into incentivizing female dairy farmers, giving them these platforms to get them to push back against vegan propaganda and help consumers feel okay about the cruelties that they were increasingly learning about through all of these investigations that were coming out. And among the practices that they were especially kind of trying to reframe and help consumers feel okay about was specifically the practice of the forcible separation of mother cows and sheep and goats, but especially cows from their babies. And so they were creating campaigns like Women in Dairy. If you Google Women in Dairy, you will find Women in Dairy Conference. There's Women in Dairy listservs and all kinds of stuff that they're doing promoting these female dairy farmers. If it looks real white, there's a reason for that. That's a whole other conversation, but it is very white, just like milk. So, but it wasn't just female dairy farmers, actually. It was more often than not, they were mothers themselves. And that was by design. So you can Google dairy moms. That's a whole other campaign. So the dairy industry was very strategically positioning these women and mothers who were also dairy farmers as the face and the mouthpiece of dairy to try and put a maternal and nurturing face on these practices. And so I started looking at what they were saying, and over again saw these mothers, rushing out to and like dairy mom influencer. That's a whole thing. Dairy farmers who are mothers who are also influencers. And over they were saying, yes, things like, we do take the calves away from their mothers, but it's because dairy cows are inherently bad mothers. Like, they don't want to be mothers. Now, we all know that's not true. First of all, that wouldn't work evolutionarily in any species, that they would be just inherently bad mothers. But we've all also seen the videos of dairy cows frantically crying, bellowing, chasing, trying to go after their babies when they're taken away from them. But these dairy farmers would say, they're bad mothers. So we step in, and I promise you, I literally saw this word used over and over again. We step in as like surrogate mothers to them, and we provide the calves with, quote, personalized care. So making people feel okay about this like utterly cruel violation, and the destruction of this really sacred bond and relationship. So, and that's what the dairy industry does. Every few years, they have to pivot because of what consumers are learning, and find a way to reframe these practices. And that usually involves some kind of massive humane washing campaign or greenwashing campaign, or both. Just checking my time. So I figured this out, and then I was extra pissed, and wanted to find a way to push back against it. At the same time, here's some more of their marketing. Dairy Cares is a whole advertising campaign that always uses the language of families, family dairy, at the same time that they are fundamentally predicated on destroying families. Um, it's maddening. So, so at the same time as I was discovering this, I had also taken on doing the social media for Free From Harm. And I had begun to notice that anytime I would share one of my dairy articles, I would almost inevitably get comments from women saying, and mothers saying, it was when I myself became a mother that I made the connection with animals used for dairy and what they go through, what they are put through, and realized I cannot support this. This is in no way justifiable, and I became vegan. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I wonder if there was a way to create a platform, and reach out to some of these mothers and work with them to develop this perspective into an actual, really powerful blog post reflection, and amplify those perspectives and reflections. I wonder if that could be a way to reach at least some non-vegans, some mothers at least, who might otherwise not be willing to engage with this issue, who would turn away from slaughterhouse videos or from, you know, cruelty investigations on dairy farms, not want to engage. But if it was another mother speaking out, maybe they would. And so I applied for a grant to get some funding, and made a website, and did put out a call for submissions and reflections, and got a ton of really wonderful response, and did just started working with mothers. I think in 2018 was the first year we started sharing reflections. So this is just a slide. Anytime I get a new reflection, I excerpt it for social media. Sorry that it's so far right aligned. These were graphics that I had made for the most recent reflection that we published at Mothers Against Dairy last week, from Nyati Kandakanti. It's really wonderful. I encourage you to go to mothersagainstdairy.org and check it out, and consider sharing it on your platforms, because social media algorithm has really been punishing us for sharing articles, anything that takes you off of the site. So we could use all the extra help getting these powerful perspectives amplified. But I excerpt them and make graphics to share on social media. I just found this reflection so wonderful. So I popped a few of those graphics in here to share as well. And yep, show you those. And so that's what we do. I also, a few years ago, put out a call for Mothers Against Dairy ambassadors. And that was anybody, you don't have to even be a mother, just interested in getting the message out there. Anybody who is willing to commit to at least 2 outreach events per year, whether that's at a veg fest or a music festival, or even just, finding a corner downtown where you're allowed to set up a table, maybe on Mother's Day, and or like a Dairy is Scary event at Halloween. We will send you a table cover and a banner, and literature on dairy, and also on eggs and meat. And lots of coupons for or vouchers for vegan cheese. I love to get ambassadors doing vegan cheese outreach. Cheese seems to be the hardest thing for people to give up, and I like to really help folks know, like give them the literature that helps them understand the harms at the same time that you offer them like the most delicious vegan cheese and help them know that they don't have to actually give up cheese. Because that seems to be the hardest thing for people. So I had a really good response with ambassadors as well, but always looking for more. This photo is from a whole chapter of Mothers Against Dairy formed in New Zealand after one of the first reflections that we published was actually from a former dairy farmer, Jess Strathdy in New Zealand, who became Mothers Against Dairy and shared a really powerful reflection about becoming a mother while she was a dairy farmer. And she just like made the New Zealand chapter amazing. They do lots of really high visibility protests. This was a protest they did at a mega dairy in New Zealand called Fonterra that got a ton of publicity, which was really exciting. So some photos of like the table cover we can send you and the banner if you're interested. And yeah, I'll stop here. I didn't talk about a well-fed world. I can talk about the work we do at a well-fed world later, but that's a little bit on Mothers Against Dairy. And again, you can go to mothersagainstdairy.org and read some of the amazing reflections. If you are a mother or know a mother also who might like to share a reflection, I love getting new ones. So, okay, I'll stop myself now. Thank you so much for listening.
Wow. Beautiful, Ashley. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, it was so wonderful to hear the origin story of Mothers Against Dairy. I've been a fan for so long of that website, and I was always wondering, like, who is the brilliant person that came up with this? So
Oh,
it's
thank
great to
you.
hear all of this. And yes, I like to make the point too. Anyone who is a woman, has a uterus, is a female, is a feminist, or anyone who loves a woman or has a mother, everyone must realize the horror show that is dairy and that is the exploitation of animals in general. So thank you very much. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. And yeah, over to you, Yvette. Excited.
All right. Thank you. I am going to introduce the fantastic Yvette Baker. She is the executive director of Apex Advocacy, where I love that right on the homepage of their website, it says, "True liberation for all means animals must be free." She is a lifelong social justice advocate, moving through the world as a writer, educator, movement organizer, social worker, critic, and proud rat lady for total liberation. She's worked with various animal rights organizations as an educator and grassroots organizer, highlighting the need to understand systemic oppression and the principle of collective liberation as one of the most effective tools to build cross-movement solidarity and work towards our common goals. Guided by an Afro-Indigenous lens, her work is rooted in a shared accountability to all relations. She loves building with comrades, sharing space with beyond human kin, and being the star dancer of every music video playing in her head. Welcome, Yvette Baker.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hello, hello. Ashley, thank you for your fierce and affirming words about Apex Advocacy. I am humbled. But thank you, everyone, for your time and hopefully your openness in listening to me today. The title of my talk, and it is just a talk, we're talking, no slides, is Ancestral Wisdom and Feminist Futures Towards Animal Liberation. As you mentioned, Leah, I am an Afro-Indigenous woman. My Blackness, my indigeneity, and my womanhood have not only deepened my solidarity with other oppressed and vulnerable beings, but the history and lived realities of these identities have very largely informed the efficacy of my animal advocacy. So I know, regardless of background or identities, most of us are here because we share a common goal of liberating animals, We're willing to be accomplices alongside their struggle for autonomy, but I also welcome and am very excited about the prospect of non-vegans and non-animal advocates listening in here at some point as well. To all of us, I'm inviting an interrogation on how we typically see this work being framed and practiced. Throughout history of the modern vegan and animal advocacy spaces, pro-animal work and theory, from my viewpoint as a USian, has been framed through the lens of Western logic, shaped by predominantly white voices and institutions. And if I have to tell you how disproportionately white this movement is in the US, you may not be paying close attention. But please do not get me wrong. I love that veganism does have logic and facts on our side. I only ask for an openness of mind here because the work that I've been doing has been reshaping the dominant pro-vegan narratives that have seen this movement remain fringe and wildly misunderstood and unpopular. Black, brown, indigenous, queer communities have been driving liberation work and movements for many decades, and yet we don't see the same kind of representation in animal advocacy. So what does it look like if we draw from indigenous ecological guardianship, which teaches us we are all related? What if we embraced feminist thought, especially Black feminist thought, which remind us that there can be no hierarchies of oppression? And what if we looked at other animals, our beyond human kin, as ancestors and teachers towards achieving not only animal liberation, but collective liberation? Because we cannot deny that we, all species, exist together in these ecosystems, and that our human conditions, materially, politically, spiritually, have direct effects on other animals. Our conditions and our liberation struggles under extractive, exploitative, oppressive systems are inextricably tied to the liberation struggles of other animals. So I invite you to engage with this perspective, not just to listen, but reflect on how it can enrich your own advocacy, because the wisdom I share is not just for me and my communities, it is meant for all of us. Dr. Alexis Pauline Gumbs, who is, and I quote her, a queer Black troublemaker and Black feminist love evangelist and an aspirational cousin to all sentient beings. She wrote a book called Undrowned, Black Feminist Lessons from Marine Mammals, where she guides us to explore marine mammals as mentors, teachers, and guides. And I will share a small excerpt. Quote, once upon a time, there was a giant sea mammal who weighed up to 23 tons swimming in the Bering Sea. In 1741, a German naturalist discovered Hydrodamallus higas swimming large and luxe, at least 3 times bigger than the contemporary manatee. Within 27 years, the entire species was extinct, killed on thousands of European voyages for fur and sealskin. So she knows what we know. It is dangerous to be discovered, end quote. And I want to point out that the relatively quick extinction of so many species were followed by centuries of harmonious living with indigenous communities. Dr. Gumbs and I, of course, share that the discovery of our ancestors also brought catastrophic violence, disease, land theft, cultural erasure, but we also share an acknowledgement that other animals have been deeply affected by colonization alongside Africans and natives. Non-humans, oceans, rivers, trees have witnessed the abuse and suffering of Afro-Indigenous communities. And Dr. Gumbs even points out that whaling existed in the same period as the Middle Passage. She looks at how Europeans exploited both humans and sea mammals simultaneously. She said, the enslaving ships and the whaling ships are in many cases literally the actual same ships used for both of those purposes. The most intense period of whaling was at the same time as the Middle Passage. And a side note, I believe it's especially important when talking about indigeneity, slavery, and colonization, that there are some well-known aspects of the occurrences and impact, including introduced diseases, massive theft of land through forced treaties and relocation, the predatory violence and conflicts, and the cultural erasure driven by assimilation practices. But a much less discussed but equally pivotal factor was the rise of animal commodification as the foundational tool for colonial control, with settlers taking the most fertile lands and disrupting indigenous food systems and African food traditions. So many largely plant-based or plant-centered, while at the same time introducing the idea of animals as property. But Black feminist thinkers, writers, scholars, even aside from explicitly pro-animal voices like Alexis Pauline Gumbs, Dr. Angela Davis, ancestors like Bell Hooks, Assata Shakur, Audre Lorde, and countless others have all had a common thread in their teachings. Virtually every single work insists that liberation must be collective. Bell Hooks said, "The soul of our politics is in the commitment to ending domination." Audre Lorde said, "I know that my people cannot possibly profit from the oppression of any other group which seeks the right to peaceful existence." She also reminded, quote, "Among those of us who share the goals of liberation and a workable future, there can be no hierarchies of oppression." Lastly, Gwendolyn Brooks, quote, "We are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond." So with these paradigms, we have the opportunity to reclaim human-animal relations by way of collective liberation, because within their work, you reliably find the teachings for us to center the most marginalized. And we see that applied in other movements as well. For example, the consideration that Black women cannot be free until Black trans women are free. You also find the examination and rejection of the forces, indoctrination, institutions, systems of harm that have shaped our understanding of what it means to be human. Of course, there's an understanding that Homo sapiens is our biological classification, but human is rightfully interrogated as a largely political identity, often delineated by race, class, gender, sexuality, and power. And because of this, we see Black feminist thought pushing forward to decenter the human. Sharon Patricia Holland, who wrote the book And Other, a Black feminist consideration of animal life, posits that Black life is not solely likened to animal life. It is relational and world-forming with animal lives. It's all right there. It's always been there in the work, and I've been committed as my birthright and my calling to carry this forward without leaving trillions of beings behind. And this work, and Apex Advocacy's work, is resonating with other social justice advocates, leaders, and those imagining liberatory futures. In our work, these deeply rooted politics that are unwavering for most people marginalized by racial capitalism are applied to animality and critical animal thought with care and grounding, and our communities are finding a strong basis with which to embrace the legitimacy and urgency of an animal-inclusive collective liberation. So this is a decolonial approach, if you will, to animal advocacy. Night and day from the results we found in calling people animal abusers or leading with accusations of cognitive dissonance, although we know it's there. But we already know that decolonial efforts are partly responsible for Black women adopting plant-based diets in a way that is outpacing all other demographics in the US. We are doing the work of decolonizing and remembering and reclaiming our health. However, with my indigeneity, this identity is much more often seen as being at odds with my veganism, both by settlers and by those marginalized by colonial legacies. There's this idea that Native peoples are only authentic if we mimic how things were done in the past, as if our cultures are frozen in time. But this perspective is not only false, it's extremely harmful. In Native traditions, almost irrespective of tribe, we share the ethos of all my relations, which reflects living in harmony with earth and taking responsibility for water, air, plants, soil, and animals. My indigeneity undoubtedly deepens my solidarity with other animals, especially in the way that my human and beyond human ancestors demonstrated unparalleled adaptability, responsive to changing social and environmental circumstances. So in this post-colonial world with over 8 billion people to feed, indigeneity must challenge any systems that are counterproductive and non-sustaining and reject the view of life or land as resources. And we know that veganism at its core is the antithesis of coloniality. It provides a way to honor the ideology, culture, traditions of indigeneity while letting go of practices that no longer serve those of us with these values, or they don't best function in this version of our world. Among animal advocates, I do often see the flinging around of the statistic that indigenous peoples make up about 5% of the global population, but safeguard around 80% of the world's biodiversity. And this is apparently lacking some scientific confirmation to my understanding. But nonetheless, if this is believed by most of us, it is somewhat perplexing that I do not see enough of us taking any subsequent actions that would point to land back politics or being led by indigenous expertise in undoing the systems that cause trillions to be unalived every year. We seem, to say the least, disproportionately, I would say, concerned about whether or not specific indigenous communities are open to quote unquote going vegan and interrogating their practices, even if the result is tens of animals harmed versus the trillions being harmed that we need to confront. And yes, of course, every life matters. I'm only questioning the intention and the efficacy. So if you haven't already, I highly encourage engaging with the work of Margaret Robinson, who's a modern ecofeminist, indigenous scholar whose work, particularly about veganism within indigenous contexts, further illuminates the alignment of vegan principles with decolonial efforts and the possibilities in reclaiming our matriarchal traditions. She shares stories and legends about animals caring for humans, teaching us and guiding us, and her research really underscores the importance of diversity within the vegan movement, showcasing how vegan practices can be integrated with various cultures and spiritual beliefs. And like the Mi'kmaq, which is Margaret Robinson's tribe, my tribe, the Shi'iwabak of the so-called Isleta Pueblo of New Mexico, our oral traditions are really central to our culture. And so I'd love to bring you in a little closer and share one very shortened version of a legend that originates from the Cherokee. So here we go, super quick. At one time, animals and people lived together peacefully and talked with each other. But when mankind began to multiply rapidly, the animals were crowded into forests and deserts. Man began to destroy animals wholesale for their skins and furs, not just for needed food. Animals became angry at such treatment by their former friends, resolving they must punish mankind. The bear tribe in council, after several bears had spoken against mankind for their bloodthirsty ways, war was unanimously agreed upon. The deer tribe called together its council. They decide any hunters who kill deer without asking pardon in a suitable manner should be afflicted with painful rheumatism in their joints. After this decision, Chief Little Deer sent a messenger to their nearest neighbors, the Cherokee tribe. From now on, your hunters must first offer a prayer to the deer before killing him, said the messenger. You must ask his pardon, stating you are forced only by the hunger needs of your tribe to kill the deer. Otherwise, a terrible disease will come to the hunter. When a deer is slain by a hunter, Chief Little Deer will run to the spot and ask the slain deer's spirit, did you hear the hunter's prayer for pardon? If the reply is yes, then all is well, and Chief Little Deer returns to his cave. But if the answer is no, then the chief tracks the hunter to his lodge and strikes him with the terrible disease of rheumatism, making him helpless and unable to hunt again. All the fishes and reptiles then held a council and decided they would haunt those Cherokee who tormented them by telling them hideous dreams of serpents twining around them and eating them alive. These snake and fish dreams occurred often among the Cherokees. To get relief, they pleaded with their shaman to banish their frightening dreams that they no longer tormented the snakes and fish. Now, when the friendly plants heard what the animals had decided against mankind, they planned a countermove of their own. Each tree, shrub, herb, grass, and moss agreed to furnish a cure for one of the diseases named by the animals and insects. Thereafter, when the Cherokee visited their shaman about their ailments, and if the medicine man was in doubt, he communed with the spirits of the plants. They always suggested a proper remedy for mankind's diseases. That's a shortened version. And I think it's really, really powerful. A powerful moral there. We see that plant medicine, plants have the profound healing powers, and the unnecessary use of animals brings hardship and illness. And with veganism showing us that consuming animals for food, clothing, shelter is often no longer a necessity, through the lens of indigenous traditions and the wisdom in our stories, it becomes clear that the practices of hunting and killing our animal relatives is no longer justified. So what does this look like, though, in modern times and for futures of animal liberation? In South Africa, I was fortunate to spend time with an indigenous vegan friend who shared with me that his tribe has a ritual ceremony that asks for an animal sacrifice. But because of his solidarity with other animals, he didn't want to do it. So he asked his chief about ritualistically saving an animal as an offering for their ceremony instead of killing one. And the chief said yes. Absolutely. And so this, to my knowledge, is the direction the ritual is now going. So there's so much more that I hope I have time to share with you in the future. But if you spaced out a little bit, the summary so far is that Afro-Indigenous ancestral wisdom and Black feminist thought can guide us to root and teach animal liberation in a way that doesn't demand a specific agenda or outcome, but provide a space for questioning and deep relation and reflection that may resonate and ground so much better than the directives or challenges that we often see in dominant animal advocacy. And if I may, I will leave you with another piece of Dr. Gumb's passage about the whale. I think you are more than evidence of the deadliness of a world in which skin is for sale at premium. I think you are more than another testament of the stark implications of European voyaging, more than an indictment of the rush, more than a folly of a dominant way of living that changes the planet quickly, thoughtlessly, forever. More than the deadliness of an insatiable hunger born of chasing things other than sustenance. That hunger outlived you. I feel it chasing me too. Thank you, everybody.
Hallelujah! Thank you. Thank you, Yvette. That was so beautiful. That was so powerful and beautiful.
I appreciate it. And I just want to name, I know we're kind of moving at time.
Please.
I know the room that I'm in. I'm familiar with IDA. I know, so I want to thank anyone here who hated my speech and who stayed anyway. That is so important. That is so important. We are in the same community, and we know from evidence that factionalism in movements is important. Not everyone is going to advocate the same way. I'm offering this as a tool, as an openness, and telling you, not lying to you, telling you that this has been very effective in what I hate to say, but veganizing people who typically want nothing to do with animal advocacy or veganism. So I just want you to consider that. And I thank you for being uncomfortable. I think being uncomfortable is part of this work. So thank you for staying, and thank you for being mad at me.
Thank you, Yvette. Most people don't change in their comfort zones. So I try to live my life that way, which is part of why I so wanted you here. I'm kind of speechless. There was a beautiful comment I just saw in the chat that your speech is like a prayer on fire. So, yeah. I have so little follow-up to that.
I've got some questions.
Yeah, so I know we have questions in the chat, and then I had a question or two for you and Ashley. But so much of what you said, I loved hearing the new and upside down perspective of, instead of, which is what I hear so often used as a justification, especially among white people, white liberals especially, is, well, using an indigenous culture as an excuse. Well, I respect indigenous culture, so I'm not going to go vegan because I respect indigenous culture, and respecting indigenous culture means not being vegan, where everything that you just said kind of points to the opposite. So that was one of my questions for you is, and how do you put this in so little time that we have left? But what do you tend to say to people who say that to you? And do you have any words of advice for white vegans in how they speak to everyone about that particular issue?
Whew. I mean, yes and no. In part, white vegans are gonna white vegan, so that is out of my control. But to the question specifically, like, what do I say? What can I suggest that we do when folks are using, we'll call them excuses, like somebody else's, borrowing someone else's reality, indigeneity, food apartheid, what have you. Um, we may not like our answer. Well, we may not like my answer, but I do think that is on us, first and foremost, because I believe that our outreach, even though I don't practice these popular styles of outreach, as some of my colleagues might call them, like missionary style outreach, but if you do, I understand. And what I think often gets miscommunicated from jump is that this is a strictly consumer-based and lifestyle-driven movement, in the sense that what's possible and practicable is often erased. And veganism should be communicated as accessible to everyone, not in the sense that it's not hard, because it can be and is hard for many people for different reasons, but accessible to everyone in the sense that whatever we believe about justice and the pursuit of liberation can and should be applied to non-humans as well. And then allow people's actions to transform as they will, and offer guidance without insistence on your guidance. And this concept is really important because your values are your values. Everyone should have this access. If you only have if you only have access to animals as your source of sustenance, if that's their reality, we can move along. But also positive reinforcement in this case with these kinds of questions, and what people genuinely can do, I think is really important and impactful. And that does, in my experience, resonate with communities who actually do face these issues. Then they often want to do more. They're encouraged, versus us focusing in on what they're not doing, and bringing up the purity angle. And I don't want to say for white folks to just full stop stay out of these conversations, but I'm close to saying that, because unless you put in the work up to learn about the deep histories of our relationships with food, the realities of food apartheid, the realities of our own exploitation and our experiences, it'll be very difficult to have a respectful or productive dialogue.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Only because we have 4 minutes left and we have Ashley here too. I just want to ask Ashley one question, and then Mary, if you could bring up if there were 1 or 2 questions from the chat. But Ashley, is there anything you would like to say to that? And also, I just want to make sure that I bring in the fact that you just did this incredible animal poetry anthology. So we'd love to hear about that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Wow, Yvette. Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. And no, I agree wholeheartedly with her answer to that question. Um, so if I can quickly just jump back and show you guys the cover of the anthology. I will do that. Let's see. Okay. So, Yvette, I was thrilled to hear you mention Alexis Pauline Gumbs, one of my favorites, and that book especially. Um, so, uh, so this is this anthology that I have been working on with my co-editor for almost 15 years. Alexis wrote the foreword to our anthology, which was thrilling, and that this book will be out in like a week, April 7th. It's already available for pre-order, and I don't have time to say as much about it as I wanted to, but basically the short version is that overwhelmingly in Western literature and poetry, animals have disproportionately functioned as symbols, metaphors, and props without their own subjectivity, much less their sentience being engaged with. And so my co-editor and I just years ago were talking and like, what if we could do an anthology? She's also vegan, animal rights. What if we could do an anthology and like as long as it takes, find enough poems that do this, that write about animals the way we envision from a liberatory framework that really does, if it's a poem about an animal, it's actually about the animal, not using them as a metaphor. And those are real outliers especially in the tradition of Western poetry. So we spent many, many years seeking out these really special poems. And it will finally be in the world, and we're so excited. I probably don't have time to share this beautiful poem, but if anybody wants, you can go to our website, thenewsentience.com. The poem is there as well. There's lots of great sample poems. And let's see. That was a blurb we got from a poet we love. So the book is available from Trinity University Press, tupress.org, and right now you can get it for 20% off pre-orders, but also when the book goes live through July, you can get it for 20% off with the code ANIMALS. I love talking about this book. I wish I could say more. I think poetry has a really unique capacity as a form of animal advocacy also. And these aren't all poems by vegans, but the poems themselves are doing the work and paying attention in a way that is absolutely required if we are going to reshape our relationship with our more than human kin. So you can go there. The book will also be the featured book of the month in Vine Sanctuary's book club in April, which is National Poetry Month. So if you want to hear us talk more about it or read along with us, it will be the book of the month, and we'll be doing a Zoom discussion with Patrice Jones on April 26th. You can go to Vine's book club. I can pop links in, or you can email me. I'll just share my email address. There's some of my rocks. So you can email me at ashley@awfw.org. That's my website down there. You can also contact me through there. And I'm also always happy to talk about rocks with you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ashley.
Stop
Wonderful.
sharing.
Wonderful. Oh, am I unmuted? No. Okay. Only because now I wish we had another half hour. We could go over the hour. May I just say I would love to continue this, bring both of you back, maybe have a full hour with each of you. I don't know. I don't know how we schedule that, but really this wasn't enough. So I'm sorry that we had to put both of you in this 1 hour, but thank you so much. In deep gratitude for.
And I just want to say shout out to Jason Balalik in the comments.
Yes.
I was seeing some real shenanigans in the comments. It was a little bit distracting, and I appreciated any time I saw Jason popping up to put that out. So
I know he's a big fan of both of yours. Yeah.
okay.
Calf rescuer for Animal Place.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we want to thank our special guests for being here today, and we also are honored to present this type of programming at In Defense of Animals. We want to encourage free thinking. We want to encourage people to be open-minded and to be respectful, especially in our chats. So wanted to mention that and thank Lia for her moderation. Thank you, Ashley and Yvette, for your incredible presentations. We are really a movement together, but all together. It takes all of us, and we have lots of work to do. So we do need all of us to combat some of these impressions in the world. And we are grateful to everyone for joining us and for speaking your truth today.
Thank you.
May I just give one last opportunity to both Ashley and Yvette to please share websites that you would like folks to check you out at? Yes.
Apexadvocacy.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And my author website is just ashley-caps.com, and you can find links to some of the other organizations and work I'm doing there as well. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. And also, Lia has put together wonderful content for International Women's Month, including the replay for this presentation today will be on there, and you can learn so much more about animal agriculture and how it is causing harm to females of all species.
And I am going to be sharing this video for sure. Personally, professionally, there's already people in my mind I'm thinking of that need to see this. So,
Uh-oh.
yeah, good.
Thank you
Any
all.
tension, but that's okay.
Thank you all for joining. We really appreciate everyone who's tuning in and everyone who's able to watch later. And we're grateful to all of you for celebrating this International Women's Month in a different way, in a unique way. So from the animal rights perspective. Thank you all very much and have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Ashley.
Yvette. That was awesome.
Thank you so much.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.